What if the emotions that you were taught to suppress, things like anger and shame and the fear of what other people think of you, are actually the key to unlocking your creative power? What if you were able to listen to the signals that your emotions were telling you and use them as your creative fuel rather than letting them paralyze you? We are exploring all of that this week. If you are new here, my name is JC and I am documenting my entire journey through The Artist's Way. It is Julia Cameron's 12-week program for discovering or reconnecting with your inner artist. Even if you're not doing this program with me, each week really explores universal themes that we struggle with as humans and has a lot of creative challenges on how we can start to unblock each of those areas. If you haven't seen the first 2 weeks, I will link them in a playlist so you can go back and watch them. They were on the themes of safety and identity. But if this is the first video you're seeing, they're kind of all standalone, so you don't have to watch them in order if you don't want to. Week 3 is all about recovering a sense of power. And when I first read that, I wasn't really sure what it meant or what I was getting myself into. But after reading the chapter, what I discovered is that creative power isn't about unleashing your anger and being controlling or dominating, but really about reclaiming your ability to listen to yourself and act on what you hear, even when it's uncomfortable. There's also a lot about uncovering who you were as a child before there was a ton of societal conditioning placed upon you, and I'm really excited to do the creative challenges this week to put myself in that childlike state and document some of the things that I loved when I was younger. The structure of these videos are really taking you with me on the journey throughout the week, so I'll talk about what's coming up in real time and the things that I'm learning, some of the challenges that I'm experiencing throughout the week, what artist date I go on, which is basically like a solo date where you get to play and express your creativity, and really just share what comes up as I start to uncover the things that are related to this theme throughout the week. Just from reading the first chapter, I already know there's going to be things on anger, on shame, on criticism, on your inner child. I just feel like this is going to be a juicy one, so let's do it together and see what comes up. If you watch some of the other videos, you might notice that I am in a new setting this week because I am visiting my best friends in California, which has been so nice. I am here for 10 days, so I'm in the middle of my trip, and I'm really proud of myself for sticking to my morning pages. It has been such a fun part of my routine and helping me find so much more clarity. So many interesting things have come up. One of the first points that Julia Cameron makes this week in the chapter is about anger as information rather than something that you should suppress. I feel like so often we are taught that anger is something that's bad, that we should be ashamed of, that we should just like keep inside of us. And especially when we're younger, there's so much emphasis on being a good boy or good girl that you don't really get the appropriate tools to figure out how to express your anger. I have an interesting relationship with anger. I really don't feel angry that often. I feel like I'm generally pretty grounded and calm, and I'm not super reactive to other people, but I do struggle with jealousy, and I feel like they're kind of similar in the way that she's describing of they both give us information on where we're blocked and something that we want to do but we're not doing. If you are someone that is really struggling with anger, I think that the beginning of this chapter is helpful because it helps you to reframe anger as something that you should be shameful of and something that you need to suppress to something that can really be the basis of your creative fuel, and to show you where your boundaries are and to kind of use it as a map for where you want to go. I feel like in my own personal experience, I feel like I definitely do have jealousy when I'm blocked. Like when I am creative, free flowing, I'm not comparing my metrics to other people. I'm not comparing other people's creative outputs to mine. But when I'm in a phase where I feel like I'm not creating in the way that I want to, it is so easy for me to look at other people and judge them on the surface and think that I'm not good enough because I'm just like doing a one-to-one comparison to another person. And I really think the common denominator to that is whether or not I'm creating myself, because when I am creating myself and I'm really in that flow and I'm being gentle with myself and I'm not being so critical and judgmental of myself, I am much less critical and judgmental of other people. Hello, I'm back in the garden and it is very sunny out, finally. Today is day 2 of this week, and it's so funny because I know in an earlier clip that's probably going to be right before this, I said it's so easy to do my morning pages and I love doing them and I do them every morning, no problem, because today they're such a struggle and it is the afternoon. For the past 3 weeks, I've done them every day right in the morning, and today I just like could not bring myself to do them in the morning. I was just so inundated with other work, and I feel like this is such a common trap that we feel this sense of urgency and we like have to do all these other things before we make time for ourselves. And I am definitely just feeling that sense of urgency today that is fully put upon myself. And yeah, I have a bunch of things that I want to film and edit, and I'm working on like editing the last week's Artist Way while I film this week Artist Way. And I'm also visiting two of my best friends in California, and I want to spend time with them. So while I was journaling, it was actually helpful because I'm just trying to like give myself grace and know that it doesn't all need to be done all at once. But yeah, I felt like that was important to share because it's not every day that I just like wake up perfectly and do the morning pages immediately. So yeah, I just feel like it's important to share like what my actual experience is with the Artist Way and not just share like this perfect version of it online. I was reading a little bit more of the chapter, and a quote that I loved from this week was when Julia Cameron said, "I have learned as a rule of thumb never to ask whether or not you can do something. Say instead that you are going to do it. Then fasten your seatbelt because remarkable things will follow." And I think that really ties together like this inner critic censor theme that we were exploring in week 1, and this idea of just letting yourself take imperfect action and not needing to have all the answers before you get started, and really just opening yourself up to a sense of possibility. She's referring to the idea of synchronicities with this quote, where she talks about when you start honoring your creative desires, then opportunities will just start appearing in ways that feel almost magical. And this concept actually comes from Carl Jung. I'm obsessed with psychology, and I love Carl Jung's work as a psychologist. And every time I read something, I find out a new framework or idea is attributed back to him. But he described synchronicity as meaningful coincidences that suggest the possibility of an intelligent and responsive universe. There's something to this from like a manifestation perspective too, of when you're clear about what you want and you start taking action towards it, you just become attuned to the opportunities that were probably always around you. I know manifestation can sometimes kind of seem woo-woo and unrealistic, but there really is something to this from a neuroscience perspective, where there's this part of our brain called the reticular activating system. I feel like I talk about it all the time. I'm obsessed with it because it's our brain's way of filtering what's around us. Oh, there's a helicopter. One sec. Because it's our brain's way of filtering the world around us to bring out the things that we want to focus on. There's so much stimuli around us than we could ever possibly take in. And a good example of this is going on a color walk, which is where you pick one color and you start to see the color everywhere because that is what you set your brain's focus on. So if you say, okay, I'm looking for the color purple, maybe originally there was no purple around you, but once you start finding the first couple of purple objects, then suddenly purple is everywhere. And I think it's just such a cool example and a really tangible example of how this synchronicity manifestation opportunity from the universe concept can really work. If this is a new way of thinking for you, it's really common to not believe in it because we have a negativity bias. We are so wired to look for the negatives, to protect our sense of safety. Even if 5 good things happen, you'll focus on the one negative instead of the positive. And you really have to put an effort to focus on these magic opportunities or the good things that are happening in your life. And something that has helped me is to create a list of this in my phone. I literally do it right in the Notes app, and it's called Manifestation Magic, and there's so many examples on it, and I try to separate it by month just so I can organize it. When I have these random moments, I will write them down because I think that it starts to show you that they weren't just random coincidences. Like, these magic things are happening all the time if you choose to look for them. This whole series is just kind of meta because the creative blocks that I was experiencing at the beginning of this journey was a lot around filming and allowing myself to get over this resistance to filming, specifically for YouTube, which you're watching right now. You're watching my journey as I overcome these creative blocks in real time. If you've watched any of my other content, you probably have heard me say this, but I created short form content for a really long time, and I still am. And I really wanted to start creating long form content for YouTube, but I just told myself that I wasn't good enough and I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have the skills to film and edit and script in this way. Really just committing to doing it and to approaching it with a beginner's mindset and learning it over time, I ended up having my best performing YouTube video in week 1 of this series because I really just set my intention on it. And if I allowed the perfectionism that was in my mind and this inner critic in my mind to win, and I would have just stayed paralyzed and I would have never posted it. So yeah, I just think having this, the artist way, as a framework has been so helpful for me in really seeing where these root fears and negative beliefs, just bringing more awareness to the patterns that I have inside. Okay, it's getting so hot out here, so I'm going to go inside and do some work. And tomorrow I'm going to start doing some of the more detective work, creative challenges for the week. So I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. Good morning. I'm back in the little garden. It has been so peaceful to do my morning pages back here and to just come outside and stretch here in the morning. I really am loving it so much, and it's so much quieter than New York City. My morning pages this morning felt very cathartic and honestly kind of a bit negative and actually angry, which was funny because in the beginning of this I was like, I don't really feel anger, and then I just felt a lot of anger come up and was letting myself fully process. Like a lot of the times I censor myself in my own journal and I don't even want to write things on the page that don't reflect like how my true self feels, but it just doesn't give me permission to experience some of the more negative emotions that I have. I wasn't aware of how much I was censoring myself in my own journal. Like if I cannot be myself in my own journal, I don't know how I could be myself in the world. That felt really good to just let myself say like bad things. I don't really know how to describe it, but things that I just would not say out loud or I would not say to someone else. I feel like sometimes my journal is maybe a little too PG, honestly. The things I was writing was things that I would not say out loud, so maybe giving myself permission to write them in my journal will actually like give me more permission to express my feelings and speak what I'm actually feeling inside, because I tend to keep it close to the chest. Honestly, that felt uncomfortable. Like I ended the journal entry being like, okay, well, that was negative and critical and judgmental, but that's just how I was feeling. So I'm glad that I let myself get it out onto the page. And then I did one of the creative challenges for the week, which was to describe your childhood bedroom and then see how it compares to your bedroom now. My childhood bedroom is so funny to think back on. Like my parents just let me really do whatever I wanted with it. I had a different color on every wall. I'll try to find a picture, but I had orange, light blue, dark blue, pink, and then a purple ceiling. Like God bless my dad for actually executing on that dream when I was younger. I had a big brown desk. I always was moving around my furniture. Like I had it one way and then all of a sudden I would just move my bed, and I just remember having so much fun redesigning my room all the time and giving it a fresh feel. At one point my bed had a canopy, which my friend actually just jogged that memory in me the other day, but I wanted a canopy so bad from seeing like a fairy or princess movie, and that was a phase. I had glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling because I was obsessed with constellations and astronomy and planets. I also protested for a TV in my room. I was not allowed to, and we had one in our guest room, and I literally slept on the floor of our guest room for like a week straight so that my parents would put a TV in my room, which is so funny because I don't even watch TV now, but when I was little I really wanted it. It's just funny to reflect on this, and it is so different from my room now. I really have transitioned to liking a lot of earth tone colors and not so much like bright, bold colors. I would actually never have my room now be one wall a different color, but I still have a lot of stuffed animals in my room. I'm obsessed with stuffed animals, and I think it's so cute, those glow-in-the-dark stars. I kind of want to have those. Or I saw a projector that had like stars on your ceiling, and I feel like that would bring me a lot of joy. So maybe I'll pose that to Ben that we should get that in our room right now. Ben and I just moved to a new apartment, so our bedroom is a little lackluster right now because we have been focused on decorating our office and the living room. So I think there is a lot of room to add fun things into our bedroom that bring us joy. I'm going to do some of the other creative challenges later in the week, but I like to sometimes sprinkle them in after morning pages if I'm in the mood. And now I'm going to go on my artist date for the week, which is to go for a hike up Fifth Observatory, which is a place in LA that has such a beautiful view, and it's kind of gloomy this morning, but I think that's good so that the hike won't be too hot. Okay, let's go. We are officially on our artist date. I'm doing a solo hike up Griffith Observatory, and I already walked like 30 minutes uphill to get here, so I'm kind of out of breath. I love hiking and I never get to do it in the city, so I'm really looking forward to spending my morning like this. It's so funny because before this hike I had all the podcasts downloaded that I was going to listen to so that I had full distraction for the whole entire solo date, and just by chance the first podcast I listened to was by Anna Howard, who has a podcast called Wild Geese and has an amazing YouTube channel as well. well. You guys should go check it out. It was about poetry and sensuality. She begins with this beautiful poem just about tuning into your senses, and so much of how we live our life is putting a wall up between us and other people and us and the world, and how when we're putting our headphones in all the time, which I'm so guilty of, we just completely miss out on the experiences that are all around us. She was giving examples of little bits of conversation, and she called them poetry walks, where you would go just capture snippets of what people were saying, hear different sounds around you, hear the birds chirping, just be fully tuned in to what your experience is. And I think that relates a lot to creativity and a lot to the themes of all of these chapters about just taking time to listen and to be open to your surroundings. As she was saying that, I felt so resistant to taking out my podcast because I was really enjoying listening to her. And I was like, I just kept negotiating with myself, like, okay, I'll take them out in 5 more minutes. And then just randomly, even though I had it downloaded, it just stopped playing and I couldn't get the rest of it to load. So I was like, okay, that's my sign. And I took out my headphones and put my phone on airplane mode, and I'm so happy I did, because I haven't had this type of solitude in a really long time. And it feels hard and challenging, but really necessary. Look at this cute little garden that I found. Oh, wow. Oh, I feel so much better than I did this morning, and I feel like there's just something so cathartic to writing out every single one of your thoughts freely on paper and then moving your body in nature with no other distraction, no music, no scrolling on my phone, and really just being fully tuned in, listening to my breath, listening to other people's conversations, listening to different sounds that animals are making, seeing different plants. It really is just something so special and healing about being here. And also I think there's something cool to the resistance that I usually feel before a hike too. Like sometimes I feel like it's gonna be too hard, I'm not gonna be able to do it, it's taking too much time. And once I fully just surrender to the resistance that I'm feeling and open up and trust myself and trust that I can do it, it always feels so good at the end. I love when you're in stillness after you've done a lot of movement, like if you've danced or ran or walked for a long time and then you just allow your body to fully be still. You can just like really feel the aliveness that's running through you. I'm back in my little outside garden, and I was just doing some of the exercises for this week, and a lot of them are designed around helping to restore the person that you might have abandoned when you were younger. And the reason that we do this is because when we're younger, we very quickly learn what traits of ours and behaviors are accepted by others that give us love by other people, and what traits are shamed or make us feel rejected. Our parents or teachers tell us that we're too much, and then we learn to suppress those behaviors and tendencies so that we can get love from other people. I feel like when I was younger, I had so much anxiety because I was so scared to fail and to not be perfect that I just had this immense fear and pressure that I put on myself all the time, that even though I was really curious and empathetic and loving and determined when I was little, I didn't really get to fully enjoy the fruits of these qualities. So now I feel like since I've done a lot of work to reconnect with this part of myself, I am able to express my curiosity and feel these traits that I really loved about myself when I was younger be expressed in my life now. But something that I feel like in the past year that has been one of the last qualities of mine to uncover is being emotionally attuned to how I'm feeling and letting that be expressed, because when I was younger, I used to cry all the time. I did not know how to handle my emotions, like anger, sadness, fear, any negative emotion, I would just express as crying. And I feel like that was probably difficult for my parents, and they did the best that they could, but I'm sure it was hard to deal with. So I just felt just like out of control almost. I think I perceived that I was too emotional or too much, and I learned how to really suppress those emotions and become like hyper independent and try to resolve all my emotions and feelings on my own, which led to just me suppressing so much of what I actually. There was a long period of time where I just completely stopped crying, would numb out all of my emotions. It's only really in the past year where I've gone through somatic therapy and I've developed relationships with people where I feel really safe that I'm starting to express that side of me again, and it feels so cathartic to just let yourself cry and to not have these emotions feel so stuck and stagnant within you. I really think that if you're able to like complete the full emotional cycle of letting out your emotions like fear or anger or sadness, you will feel so much more connected to yourself, and you'll learn to trust yourself way more than if you just constantly suppress these emotions. Once you start to have this healthy flow of emotions through you and you free that stagnation that you're feeling, I think you start to become more aware of your body in general, and you're more able to listen to those feelings of intuition or insights or situations where things are not feeling, and you become better equipped to take care of yourself and to trust yourself. And ultimately, that is the foundation for being able to express your creativity. I think it's really easy to get caught in the shame spiral of being fearful of like, what will this person think if they really knew what I was like inside, or that I'm being too needy or impractical, or that I'm doing something that's wrong. And just this voice that we internalize that no matter what we do, it's never enough and we're not good enough. In this chapter, Julia Cameron talks a lot about how things like shame and perfectionism paralyze us from making art because we're so afraid of failure and afraid of criticism that we just don't do anything at all and we stay in our little safe bubble. There's a part of this where she goes into criticism, which I thought was interesting because I am very sensitive to criticism, especially if I'm doing something that is right for my heart. And she talks about useful criticism versus useless criticism and discerning the difference between them, and also being protective of who you surround yourself with. Like, useful criticism, she says, leaves us with one more puzzle piece for our work. Like, it helps us look at our work from a new perspective or uncover something that we might have not originally thought of. And useless criticism is just like someone shaming you or kind of being ambiguous and not really giving you concrete things to think about, and it just feels maybe even like personal, or they're projecting. There's challenges for this week of making a list of friends who nurture you, calling someone that really supports you, and listing people that you admire, because who you surround yourself with is so important, especially when you're recovering your inner artist or you're reconnecting with your creativity, because it's so vulnerable and it's so intimate and so personal. I attribute so much of my ability to be creative to the people around me, my best friends and Ben, and I feel like they reflect back to me who I am when I forget. They just help me to believe in myself so much. I just feel like before I had them in my life, I thought that my dreams were too big, or what I wanted wasn't possible, or that I wasn't special, and that I had nothing to offer. And from their reflection back to me of encouragement and support, I really just gained so much confidence to continue pursuing what I loved, and it helped me a lot in the beginning when I was gaining momentum. So I think it's so important to almost take an audit of the people that are in your life so that you can have more awareness around how it's impacting you and where it might be keeping you stuck, or where it might be an enabler for your creativity. Guys, morning pages have been such a struggle for me this week. It's either it feels so amazing or I don't want to do them at all, and I'm just like having such a hard time getting through them. Today, I think it took me maybe over an hour to get through my morning pages because I started out the morning, immediately started scrolling, which makes me feel horrible. And then I was trying to do this and I just kept having like random ideas, or I would just get random notifications, and I had my phone right next to me, and I would literally write 3 sentences and then scroll on social media for like 20 minutes and then start writing again. So I just needed to include this because I think from other clips, I just make it seem like, oh, every morning, no problem, morning pages is so easy. And some mornings it's just not easy to do. But the most important thing is that I've done them every single day, even if it's a little bit later in the day, even if I get distracted. So if you are also doing the morning pages, do not get discouraged if it feels challenging, or if you're having a hard time, or you just don't want to do them. I think it really comes in ebbs and flows. And she even talks about this in the chapter. Not every day we feel creative. There are some days where we have a million ideas and it's so easy for us to create. And there is some days where it just feels so hard. I feel like I have no brain cells in my brain. So be gentle with yourself. There are some phases where you're just planting seeds and there's nothing to harvest, and you're in hibernation mode and you're sleeping and you're resting and you're recovering. And then there's some phases where all your flowers are blooming and you get to harvest every day and you'll just have so much abundance. And when you're talking about something like creativity, you really just have to be patient. I feel like the only way that I learned this, and I still sometimes struggle with it, is just going through so many cycles of this pattern where I have a lot of ideas and then no ideas, and I really just try to work with it as best as I can. Like when I have a lot of ideas, I write them all down and I keep track of them, and I try to film as much as possible and create as much as possible. And when I don't have ideas, I just try to be patient and know that the pattern will repeat again. So anyway, I just need to come here and tell you guys that it is so normal if you are not feeling motivated every day to create. Okay, you guys, it is the end of week 3, and there was a lot that came up this week. I feel like in the beginning of the week, I wasn't really sure what creative power entailed. And after going through the week, going through the creative exercises, the common themes that emerged were really just to create space to express your emotions fully, to let those emotions like fear and anger and shame that you would normally suppress come to the surface and use it as fuel for your creativity. And instead of numbing yourself and constantly overstimulating, really be open to feel and be open for serendipity and be open for opportunity to come into your life. I loved this line from week 3, which said, "We like to pretend it is hard to follow our heartstrings. The truth is, it is difficult to avoid walking through the many doors that will open. Turn aside your dream and it will come back to you again. Get willing to follow it again and a second mysterious door will swing open." Once you really start to be open to the magic that is happening around you all the time, and you take your dreams seriously and act on the things that you are getting little signals about, you will start to build momentum, and you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all the answers. Really just taking small steps and letting yourself have an experimental mindset rather than this perfectionism that keeps us so stuck is the way that you're going to move forward, and is the way that you are going to start living the life of your dreams. I really loved how this week was structured and how she tied together these exercises that help remind us who we are before the world placed all of these external expectations upon us, and really create that foundation for your younger self to feel safe and accepted and loved, because having that foundation will open up your creativity in ways that you cannot even imagine. All of these emotions, the shame, the anger, the synchronicities around you, they are all data points trying to guide you in the way of your most authentic creative expression. And the power really comes from learning to listen. If you guys did this week along with me, let me know what came up for you in the comments. I am so curious. And next week is week 4, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous for, because there is a reading deprivation challenge for the week, meaning you cannot read any books. She's really trying to paint the picture about how this constant consuming of other pieces of media, even social media, YouTube, is really taking away from our own imagination and our own thoughts. So when I did the artist way the last time, I completely disregarded the reading challenge, and I'm really gonna do my best to actually do it this time for you guys and show you what happens, because I really am so interested to see what comes up. And just like that, week 3 is officially done. Thank you guys so much for being here. This series has been so much fun to create and really has just reignited my love of filming and creating and editing, and I just could not be more grateful that you are here with me. So make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. And if you miss me during the week, you can find me on short form, Instagram, and TikTok. I'll link everything down below. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you guys in the next video.